want to compare your experience to what you, Kirill, and you, Pablo, experienced when working on different companies with different companies and many of our experts and people we know who work as consultants more and basically jump from one project to another, from one platform to another. You, Thomas, on the other hand, probably do you have this connection to the platform, to the infrastructure that you build basically ground up now? And do you guys, Kirill, Pablo, do you feel yourself connected to infras projects that you care and you want to improve it besides your agreement with the customer or with the client back when you consultants?
So I think, at least in my experience, because I don't know, Thomas, how old are you? But more or less we should be the same age. But I've been working more than 20 years too. But my experience is that I've been working in many companies. The longest one, it was 2 years, something like that, 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So and what you build is a life history. Because 17 years in a company is, you see every step of the company. You see how it's growing. You see, for example, this what you're telling when it's bought by another company. All the changes that are in the industry, and you're in the same place and you're changing everything. In my experience, something different, because I go to one place, I do something, and then I go to another place. So what I mean is that what Thomas has is something like a straight line. So of a history from end to end, and for me, it's like if you are reading a book and you're only in one subject, and you are in one episode of the book, and that's all. It's completely different, because I can imagine that if you talk with Thomas about the names of the machines that they have, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, he can remember the names of the machines, because when we were giving names to machines. So it's completely different, the experience that I have and the one that he has.
But which of the approaches do you think works better for the health of the infrastructure? First for the health of the infrastructure. For example, you, Pablo, when you come to a new company, you have basically a fresh view at what they did before you. Maybe you immediately can say what needs to be changed, what works, what doesn't work. For you, Thomas,
because, for example, I don't have the experience that Thomas has when I go to this company. So I can say, okay, yes, I think that this is wrong, but he know all the company knowledge. Because when you go to a new place, you don't have this company knowledge. And you always need to talk with the people that is in the company to understand. Because you can say, no, we need to do that, and that. If you say that, is wrong, because you need to understand first, how is the company, what are the process of the company, how is the company working, and after that you can take a decision. But to do that, you need people like Thomas, because without people like Thomas that has been in the company for a long time, first, there is no company, because a company is made by Thomas, not by Pablo's, because jumping from one place to another is not making companies. It's helping during a period of time, and then this is is completely different.
Yeah, maybe one difference is that. So when you talk about the health of the infrastructure, to me, I don't care that much about infrastructure on its own. It's like something to get a job done. But what's important in the company is the principles, the culture and the mindset of the people. And you know what you can do, what you cannot do, because of the context that the company is in. So Payback, for example, has a very strong focus on data protection, because we own a lot of data. We get a lot of data when the people use loyalty systems, and people are always worried what happens with their data, especially in Germany since a long time. And there are good reasons for them to have a focus on data protection, and with the German history, there are reasons that. And if you don't know that, when you come in, for example, like a consultant, and just say, hey, can we not build this like with this simple service in the cloud that just processes your data, and then people get very nervous quickly here, and you have to be very careful how you try to sell something like that. So you have to start with, for example, talking about how the data is being protected, and then talk about maybe some other benefits and things like that. So this is what you learn, I think, over time. What's the DNA of the company? How many risks is it willing to take? And also just the right people to talk to and how to talk to them. I think this is what really gets you further than the plain technology behind the things. That is that comes secondary in my point of view.
This is a very interesting answer because this is rare. I know a lot of people who can be very attached to the things they create, and they confuse business needs with their job tasks, and they can be very protective about the ideas they try to implement, they try to make with their infrastructure, with the tools they create, often forgetting about what a business priority is, or priorities are. And this is, I think, what you mentioned is very important, that being attached more like, okay, not maybe attached, but setting a business priority over tooling is very important. But at the same time, at one point you chose Google Cloud Platform as your main platform to scale for tens of millions of users. So was it like, what was the journey behind this decision, and were you the part of this decision-making process, and what you were thinking about?
Yeah. So the decision that came from multiple dimensions, I would say, that influenced this decision. So I think the most straightforward one is just the pure amount of data that we have to manage. And we did that, and we still do partially do this with our on-premise data center, where we have a co-location. And in general, this was also working fine. But you always reach the point where your box is just full. You have a database, and if you need to extend it, you have to buy another full appliance, as we were using appliances, which are not cheap, which come with big upfront investments if you need to scale those out. And it never goes down, basically. So it's not like elastic. You cannot scale up and down again. If you want to provide the same performance in the non-production environment and to do tests, for example, this also gets pretty expensive. So a couple of things around the classical elasticity that you get in the cloud, but also then other factors like services that are available that we were hoping that we could take away of the toil of our operations engineers to just operate things. This is part of it, but also I think not obvious when we started, because we had very little knowledge when we started with the cloud, is that everything is API driven, easier to reproduce. And we just know if we use infrastructure as code, we have reproducible environments. We have a better compliance standpoint. We know exactly what we are deploying where all the time. So this transparency is a big plus. But also the decision for Google specifically, I think it was a lot around like BigQuery capabilities. We had with Amex, they had some experience. We had exchange with those. We could benefit from the relationship of our big mother company with Google. This was also like a financial aspect of the decision. And we were assuming that the commodity stuff like running containers and functions and things like that would not be that much different between the cloud providers. I think I learned now that there are a lot of differences actually in the details, but these were the main, and then the third one, maybe in the ML and the AI space, we thought at the time, and I still think that's the case, that Google is pretty advanced in what they provide. And also they convinced us that they also, for example, have a very strong networking foundation, as they run a lot of the internet traffic over their network. And as a customer, you can benefit from that as well. So to have like low latency networking capabilities was also important for us. And I was part of that decision, so to the second part, but I would say only partially. I think what came after this decision was more like, okay, how do we tackle this? I think this was where it got challenging in terms of we need to choose a partner. We cannot do this on our own and things like that. But that's then the next story, like how we actually started implementing all of that.
I think like the whole idea of platform engineering was born basically in your hands. What you're describing is how you are choosing tools, how you exploring and understanding how things works. Do you think it was an organic way for you to reshape the way you do your job and your approach to infrastructure and to platform engineering, that you basically were shaping it from ground up, from zero?
I think it was just like an evolution and also a bit of learning by doing, at least in my case. When we started platform engineering, maybe the term was around, but not that much more.
Yeah, it's still a relatively new concept.
Exactly. But at least I think we had something like a platform in the on-premise world without really calling it like that. Kirill knows what I'm talking about as he helped building parts of that. But the focus shifted, with moving to the cloud. We all had to learn that, well, the one extreme is you just hand out the access to the cloud to the developers and let them go. And I think everyone agrees now that this is a very bad idea in general, except if you want just to experiment and try something out as a startup or something, and you have some experience, might work for some time. But eventually you will hit the point where this doesn't scale and you all end up with a big mess in the end that is hard to maintain. So we wanted to have a platform. I'm not even sure we called it platform team, but the term like IDP and things like that was coined later. There was not that much tooling around. I think that was one of our challenges. At least we had the help from a company that has seen a lot of mistakes I think you can do when building or scaling out in the cloud. So to have at least some things on a really strong foundation, like the resource hierarchies, the naming concepts, the permission model, the responsibility model. I think these were the hard problems we tried to solve once. And this is part of the challenge, to identify decisions that you have to make upfront or decisions that you can defer to later when you have a bit more experience. And for this, we had a bit of help, and most of the decisions still hold until today. So this was good. Maybe some things I would do a bit differently, but not fundamentally differently. And fighting for those decisions was hard in the beginning, and also sometimes still is. So some things can always be questioned, and some things might feel a bit hard. But as other decisions might compromise security or compliance, this is then a simple decision, but sometimes hard to argue about.
Thomas, in your decision to go to Google, because I had to imagine that AWS was there too, and Azure, I had to imagine that, because in these big customers always, they go there. Because I've been working in many migration from AWS to Google, from Azure to Google, from on-prem to Google. So, you said that one of the, BigQuery is one of the reasons because you choose that. Finance is another one. But now that you are working with Google, do you regret in something? Because I've been working with Google many years, and I think it's a very good one, but there are very weak points. There's something that you say, "Well, man, please."
Yeah. Well, I'm in the happy position that I don't have really experience in AWS or Azure, so I know a lot. Like I just heard from consultants or others. Yeah, okay, this is different in AWS. This is better, or this is actually better in Google. So that question doesn't really come up a lot. But I think in the future, this single cloud strategy will probably not completely hold, just because, for example, we use also Microsoft Teams for workplace stuff, and already see that this mixes up and gets more involved into Azure stuff. And we all also had acquired a company that had a product or payment product, pay product, is actually running on Azure. So we have some workloads there. And we also acquired a company that had a workload on AWS. So we have some stuff running there, but it's not part of the platform as it's managed separately still. But yeah, I don't know, what can you say? We didn't want to start with a multi-cloud or poly-cloud approach, because that would have completely overwhelmed us. And I think it's cool if you just get to know one cloud really well and then maybe look into others. But it was already a huge step for us.
And the on-prem is completely done, no? You are not using on-prem anymore. Or is it still there?
No, we're still on premise.
So you have the internet between Google
exactly. And this is also part of the hard things to do, like this hybrid networking, the interconnectivity. We have a lot, and we know that it's going to take time. Even when we started, we couldn't even say how many years it will take. So we were sure it's not going to be 3 years or something. It's really a big 25 years grown landscape of applications and data and processes that need to be untangled, modernized with different strategies, and then brought to the cloud. And we never, from the beginning, we said, we don't do a lift and shift, and we don't do a lift and shift basically, but we need to explore every part of our applications, like how we migrate it or re-architect or replace or whatever the strategy is. And then we already came up with a rough estimate that, I don't know, 5 years plus something. So it's just a lot. Yeah.